Welcome back, and as you can see, we are on Sylt for the PWA World Cup. We're going into the second foil World Cup of the year. We have 10 days coming up with hopefully a lot of action. Right now you obviously see a lot of windsurfers behind me. Everyone comes here for the World Cup. But usually that's not the case, especially at this spot, because when the wind is onshore, you have gnarly shore break. When the wind is offshore, it's pretty gusty. So the window for good conditions here is pretty small, and that's a topic we want to dive in today with you guys. Let us know in the comments what makes a good spot for you. Welcome back to Sylt, welcome back to foiling. We haven't been on the foil since Guadeloupe, PWA in April, so it's been quite a while, also for me, to be honest with you guys. Yeah, not much time on the foil, 2 hours since Guadeloupe, so I really have no clue where I stand and how it's gonna be. I'm gonna be as surprised as you are, so I'm looking forward. It's offshore, so conditions are gonna be tricky, gusty. Obviously I have the whole city in front of the wind, blocking the wind. So let's see. Okay guys, here's a little bit of real talk. As I mentioned before, I haven't spent a lot of time on the foil. So things didn't quite go as planned. After focusing on the fin, the content, the clinics, I wanted to spend some more dedicated time on the foil. And then we had another opportunity to go to Sweden. Then I obviously got injured, which wiped out pretty much almost 2 weeks just before the event. So there has a lot been going on, and I really wanted to focus on the fin because that's currently where my passion is.
Nico Prien has been sailing here for a while, he's been training here, he's been putting the work in, and he has finally got that victory that he has definitely deserved. What a win that is for Nico Prien. Great performance.
And foiling has kind of become an expensive hobby because not so many people are foiling actually, and the feedback that I get from the industry and also what I see from our shop SURFCENTER is that not so many people are foiling anymore. There was a bit of a hype in the beginning. I was really hyped in the beginning as well, and had a couple of really good years on the foil. I was pushing really hard, going first in Germany, then in the PWA World Cup, had 2 or 3 good years now in the top 10 on the foil. And it feels like the development of the foil or the hype of the foil has slowed down a little bit. So that's a bit demotivating for me. It's not so important for the brands anymore. And also the people who come to my clinics, almost all of them are on the fin. And all of that combined had me rather put the focus where, first of all, my intrinsic motivation is, also where kind of the industry is shifting at the moment. And this obviously shows that things don't just come by themselves, but sport at this level needs a certain amount of attention and time. Here I'm injured now with my cut toe. It's not that bad, but of course messed a lot with my plans to focus on the foil and the gear preparation before this event. We will see how it develops. Definitely stay tuned because I'm gonna keep you guys informed. And obviously the fin is where at the moment my emotions are and where I feel like I want to become world champion. So foil lost a bit of focus, and I think that might be why it's not quite going that well at the moment. And then obviously also nowadays it's become almost like a one design foil class, not so much for the boards and the sails, but the foils. A lot of the guys are on one specific brand. I'm not, and that's also not what I kind of signed up for in the beginning. It kind of developed that way, and I kind of liked it much better before when everyone had different sponsors and everyone was kind of trying to make a better foil and play on a different league, but it has kind of gone away from that. A lot of the guys on tour now obviously are also working on different things now, just like me, to fulfill their passion of racing, which is really expensive, and the money you make from simply purely the racing, and especially the foil racing, which is a very niche market, is simply not enough to justify the racing itself. So the funding kind of has to come from different sources. As you can see behind me, it's completely flat, which is pretty atypical for Sylt. You are used to these pictures of massive waves, gnarly shore break. The wind is offshore today, and Behind us we have this big city which kind of blocks the offshore wind, and it's going to be gusty. The conditions here can differ a lot, and there are a lot of spots in the world where conditions differ a bit from day to day, and that begs the question, what makes a good spot and what not. Now, when looking at a windsurf spot, obviously our number one priority is the wind itself, and we always want the wind to come from a place that is empty, where there's no trees, no buildings, which is ideally the water, but also exposed spots. So let's say a peninsula where there's not a lot of land around is a good place, because the wind can come from all sorts of directions freely from the water, and you want to look for a spot that doesn't have a lot of buildings or trees around, because when the wind is offshore, obviously trees and buildings make the wind gusty. So the more exposed a spot is, and the less you have construction around, the better every wind direction will work at the spot. Now, obviously that is when you're looking for free riding conditions. The discussion becomes a different one when you're looking for wave conditions. And the opposite to that exposed spot is a bay, especially a bay with buildings around, with mountains around, because then you only have a very small wind window which the spot will work in. Whereas if you have an exposed spot like a peninsula, you have a spot which will work in a lot of wind directions. So this is more or less what you can expect in, well, with so few hours of training on the foil. Speed is not quite there. Also don't really know why, because yeah, obviously I didn't test much of the gear. Could be a lot of different things. The mast, the sail tuning, all sorts of variables that are out there that obviously need a lot of time to test and tune, and therefore I didn't expect so much more speed, which in these gusty offshore conditions and flat water, it's not so technical. You need the gear to work out perfectly, and everything needs to be tuned, because you're just standing and yeah, kind of the gear is giving you the glide and the speed. So didn't have that. Also took me quite some time to get back in, because yeah, out here in the front, right in front of the beach, there's not a lot of wind. So before we looked at where the wind is coming from, but obviously we also have to look at where the wind is going, because in the worst case, when you break something, that's where you're gonna drift. So if where the wind goes is a big reef or a wall, or where waves are breaking, that's usually pretty bad, because you're gonna end up injuring yourself. So you always wanna make sure wherever the wind goes, you're safe. Offshore wind, bad idea, often a bad idea, especially when it's like here, when it's gusty, because you're gonna have an even harder time to come back. But whenever it's offshore, that's usually a bad indication, because for safety reasons, you're gonna have some problems. All of that is for us not a very big problem here, and usually at competitions, because we have safety boats that in the worst case will bring us back to the beach if we break something, if we drift too far out. Speaking about drifting, not only the wind can take you away, also the current can. Sometimes the current goes in a different direction of the wind. There are some spots I know about in Mauritius where actually the current takes you out to the sea, even though the wind is not in the same direction. So that's really dangerous, and that's always something that you have to check with the locals. Well, another elimination. Hopefully this one goes a bit better. Wind seems to be lighter. I took my 8.7 now, which is the biggest we have for the lightest possible wind. I would say that was a little bit better. At least the speed was kind of there. With the big gear, sail goes a bit better. Or at least the setup on the sail goes a bit better. 6th place, I think better than in the first one. So kind of happy with that towards the end of the day. And of course, spending all day in the wetsuit, in the end of the day, you get a little bit cold, especially with the Lycra on top, it makes it even colder. But you also kind of want to stay flexible, so you don't want to wear too thick of a wetsuit. But of course, temperature is definitely an issue here.
A good windsurf spot for me means a whole package actually. You know, like I like to sail with people, so I want good vibes, no? Want good vibes, and in the ideal world, there's grass, so your equipment stays clean. It's consistent, and it's a spot that can change, you know? Like sometimes it's flat and sometimes it's wavy. That's for me the dream spot. So I need something good to rig. I need a spot that's changing a bit, so I have a mix of conditions, and I need to have good vibes. So some people there to, I don't know, have a good time.
First of all, it has to be warm, blue waters, consistent wind, and sometimes strong and like light-ish, like 15 knots wind. That would be amazing.
Well, very easy. Wind, very important ingredient. Poso, best example. Good wind, good conditions, action.
Obviously some wind. Normally warm weather, sun is a big thing, and the best part is I think good people around with good vibes.
So it seems like the guys are pussies. Now obviously everyone likes good weather, warm, going windsurfing in board shorts, rigging on grass. That's I think obvious, and that also is what makes a good spot, and you see it always in our spot guides that this is one of the factors: the infrastructure, the parking, how easy is the access. Here the access is pretty bad if we are not at a competition. Obviously now we can leave our gear at the beach, but if you have to park down there behind the dune, it's a hassle to bring all the gear here. And here it can also be a lot warmer in July and August, but the World Cup somehow always happens in September, October. And why is that? Obviously because of the wind conditions, and that's something that is again important for choosing a perfect spot. When is the wind the best? The storms pass through here in September, in October, in the fall, even in winter, but yeah, we don't want to have it too cold. So this is a perfect time of a combination where temperature still is acceptable and the wind starts blowing, and therefore the spot is nice as it is. For a competition it's rough, we can store our gear here, but in a normal windsurfing day you would probably rather go to the north of the island. And that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the coming days, because if there's any wind coming, we will update you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to not miss anything of our upcoming adventures and tutorials. And of course, let us know in the comments what makes a perfect spot for you. And with that said, I see you guys in the next one.